Hello and welcome to the Budget Builds official tech chat type thing that we do, where today I'm joined with Charles.
Hiya.
Eightmegs.
Hello.
Callum.
Hello.
Owen.
Hello.
And Wayne.
Good evening.
And there we go. So we've actually got through the numbers. Well, first of all, I think it's worth saying that the game we have on in the background for those that are watching on the internet is OpenTTD. And I'm going to openly plug 8Meg server, Callum95. Is that alright?
Thank you.
Drum up some interest,
There's a bot in the server that does it for me anyway.
Might as well drum up as much interest as possible while we're here. I'm ill, but we've got plenty to talk about, and I'm running out of tea. So, I've actually lost my little notepad file of what we were going to talk about, but I think the first thing on the agenda was just to get the important jazz out the way. The RX580 cut-down Chinese variant thing. Anybody got any opinions? Yes, 8Megs.
Okay, done.
So, anyone got any opinions?
It's a con.
Yeah, you say it's a combo, but it's not going to be available to the Western market. It's essentially... My personal thoughts are, it's a binned RX, 570, which has the RX580 name purely from the perspective of marketing things. So when you go to a cafe, you think they've got better graphics cards than they do, which is technically a scam. Anyone think any different to that? And it's more of a scam than I think, or... anything
then it's China we're on about, so the chance of it being actually legit is very slim anyway.
Yeah, there's so many weird little unique type card things over there. I mean, there's an RX, is it a... No, it's a... There's different RX cards, and there's about 5 different 1060s, different 1080s with different RAM configurations, all that kind of jazz, you know? It's just... The market over there is just strange, but it's designed around this idea of gaming as a communal thing, and like internet cafes and stuff like that. And I've never been to an internet cafe. Has anyone here ever been to an internet cafe?
No.
I've been one, they're pretty good.
Really?
I haven't nearby,
but they're surprisingly good for like making you friends and stuff.
Really? Like, which one did you go to? Like, without like sharing your location or anything?
One in London, as far as I know, and I went to it, and it was quite good.
What
I
was
met
it
a lot
called?
met a lot of people. I can't remember the name off the top of my head.
It
But
sounds
I
like
went there when I was like 12.
It sounds like quite an interesting place, because admittedly, the closest thing I have to near me is a retro game shop with a couple of arcade machines. We don't really have anything like that there, so you get the idea. Like, it's not something that I'm used to, but I don't know, I just can't get my head around the idea of why would I want to go to some place? Like, how much did it cost to use these computers for, like, say, an hour or so? Or do you not pay per the hour?
As far as I remember, it was an hour, like, per hour thing. I think it was like £7 now, something like that. Can't remember.
It's not that bad, but when you consider, like, 10 hours later, you've already got yourself enough money for your own PC. Is it really worth it?
It's not, but it depends on the
Yes, but it's enough money for a PC by this channel standard.
Yeah, but our standards are the best standards. I class... 1155 can easily be bought for £50, so you're fine. And you're in Ireland, so you don't count.
Oh dear.
Ireland is a beautiful country. Talk about cafes. Has anyone been to the cafe recently? Anyone?
The cafe.
Just a cafe. It doesn't matter. Not specifically the cafe.
I was
You
at
know,
Colossus 2 weeks ago.
There's a cafe in near me that advertises itself as an internet cafe, but it's actually just a cafe with free Wi-Fi.
Well, it's an internet cafe. You get the internet there. Most of Ireland doesn't have the internet.
Yes, but that sign's been up there since about 2003.
I went to Ireland, and there were people still sending carrier pigeons with floppy disks. So, it wasn't exactly high quality when I went there.
No, people diss the use of carrier pigeons, yet they are so useful.
How often do you use the carrier pigeon then, Charles? Go on, give us the lowdown on carrier pigeons.
Daily Mail.
But think about it. All you have to do, it's like a plane, your own plane, but all you have to feed it is like a couple of seeds every here and there.
Yeah.
You can replace it immediately.
Yeah, but I've noticed a few issues with that idea. You have to wait a long time for a carrier pigeon to get from place to place, don't you?
No, a carrier pigeon flies at 90 miles per hour.
Really?
They don't fly that fast.
Yeah, they do.
I can't
Yeah,
say
they
I've
do.
never seen a 90-mile-an-hour pigeon.
Maybe with a few modifications.
Yeah,
jet
pimp
engine.
my pigeon.
Yeah, new engine.
Okay, Google it as a matter of
Upgraded
principle.
An aerodynamic beak.
Oh yeah.
In fact,
Look, Eightmegs, I've upgraded my pigeon to top level.
I actually, you know, ever since I decided to install the supercharger in my pigeon, you know, he hasn't been moving much recently. It's like the old saying, you ever fuck a
Did
pigeon?
you overclock him too much?
I don't. That's not actually an old saying. I feel like I've just fucked up my words there. Oh well.
You
We
sound
tried.
like George.
What about if you had a fake chrome exhaust tips to your pigeon?
Or just ram it up its arse. I feel like this is borderline
yeah.
animal abuse discussing modifying
Yeah.
pigeon.
Go
We're
for
5
some
minutes.
scratch
People aren't meant to
pigeons.
hear this till about an hour and a half into the podcast.
This is no longer a tech podcast. This is an animal podcast about abuse.
Yes, this is about looking after your animals. If you look after pigeons, you should be caring for them. You should not be doing anything that anyone on this tech server recommends. No matter how good your pigeon looks with a new Eaton supercharger, it's just not humane. Feed them, and that's it.
Have you ever seen a racing pigeon? They're buff.
Oh yeah, I've seen a racing pigeon. I know someone that actually
I've seen
has
lots
pigeons.
of them.
I know a racing pigeon very close to me.
Very close to you. Is he
on-
close to your heart? Is he like
Yeah.
You know it
On a
personally.
personal level.
on a personal level? He knew this pigeon. I'm proud of you, Owen. I didn't think you'd ever bring up the courage to talk to us about this pigeon, but you have, and for that I thank you.
Yeah, I'm
'Cause-
making new friends in the world.
Yeah, my boy Owen, he lost one of his friend pigeons in an accident a long time ago. Grit salt truck, middle of summer. Pigeon never saw it coming.
Yeah.
Isn't it true?
Yeah.
That it's a
Sad
shame,
time.
really. But no, I went down to my local cafe the other day, and I saw someone I hadn't seen in a while, and he was never the brightest spark. Lovely guy. He didn't realise he's been working all summer for £1.20 an hour, and he's
Oh,
already
dear.
put in 50 hours work.
Christ.
Thing is, when we took away fuel, it ended up he was working for 20p an hour.
Oh,
Ooh, very
It's a-
good deal to me.
It's a guy I know. He's an all right guy. It was farm work. I have no idea what he was doing, but 20p an hour. I suppose it kept him busy.
you know, I bet it was Stephen.
No, my boy Stephen wouldn't do that.
Well, the
My
thing
boy
is,
Steve-
did
You
you
scared
tell
him off
him
with
that-
geeks
He's
with
going for
nipples,
10p
remember?
an hour.
No, 10p an hour is like, you know, that's just too low. That's an insult. See, here is where things matter. Here is where 20p is the big bucks. You know, that's like you know when you go to London, you get paid extra to live. It's like that, but working on the farm for 20p an hour. So that's where things change. But you know what? Like, I've been gradually building it up, and I was considering actually doing it as like a mini-series where I review cafe food because of how many cafes I've been to now. Just sort of my life revolves around going and thinking, that's a shitty cafe. Let's go in there. I even had like a fucking day with my mates called Crappy Cafe Thursdays. We'd go to a crappy cafe and see if it was any good.
It'd be quite a good idea, especially if you give the Wi-Fi rating in there as well.
We go test the Wi-Fi. The best bit is we sort of there's a guy who runs the Morrison's Cafe near me, and he doesn't come off as the brightest fella ever, but he loves us because we used to come in every day, and then eventually, you know, they were having some issues with the cookers and they weren't serving hot food. And he was just like, no, sorry boys, no hot food today. I've had to send all of you away. And he says, oh, we've got cups of coffee, but unfortunately we only offer one type of coffee, and it's decaf. So, you know, unless she
It's
wants a
not
decaf coffee, you know, it's not coffee. So this guy had no one to talk to all day. Yeah, bit depressing. And like, you know, I can order. See, the main breakfast I always get. I don't know why we're talking about breakfast now, but you know, it's very important. I don't know if anyone's got a preference on breakfast, but I always get a thing called the mega breakfast, and replace the mushrooms with an extra hash brown. And then you get, it's about a £5. You get a cup of coffee, 2 rashers of bacon, 2 sausages, beans, 2 hash browns, fried slice, an egg on top, and some toast on the side, along with your cup of coffee, and that's a £5. And that's my go-to breakfast. So I don't know if anyone else has got a go-to breakfast, but if you want to share it, please tell me now.
I
can't
mind
eat
full
breakfast.
English.
Full
I
English.
can't eat breakfast. I just end up feeling sick.
But,
Really?
No tomatoes.
No tomato. I'm not keen on tomatoes on a breakfast. Tomatoes and mushrooms. Mushrooms I will have, but you know,
I do like mushrooms.
I'd much rather, you know, treat myself to another hash brown, which is what I usually do. This is meant to be a thing called Techchat, but I feel like breakfast chat would be more appropriate here, you know? It makes more sense.
Start to the day.
Techo, you're from Scotland though, aren't you?
Yes, I am
so-
from Scotland.
So up in Scotland, what kind of jazz is happening up there with breakfast? Because I'll be honest, the closest I've got to seeing a breakfast in Scotland was a place in Dumfries that does coffee and a bacon butty for £2. No, not £2, £1.20. Because
It's literally just that. Literally just that. That's your average Scottish person breakfast.
just a coffee and a bacon butty.
Yes, it like pretty much any meat, anything you'll have for breakfast. Yeah, that's your average Scottish person's breakfast.
That's absolutely fine. That sounds beautiful in my books. I'm struggling to see the issue.
That's
My
cheap as
grandmother
chips,
makes
that.
a great breakfast.
Just some eggs and bacon. That will get you through the day.
Eggs and bacon. You know, I had eggs and bacon 2 days ago now. I just had eggs today, you know. I don't know, this is what all we talk about. We literally just discussed breakfast. I feel like calling it breakfast.
The breakfast podcast.
Breakfast podcast. That's pretty much what this is. But we ramble. That's what we do.
Yes.
Okay, so what we'll try and round up breakfast. But I just want to say one last thing. Does anyone have a favourite cereal?
Oh, crunchy nut cornflakes.
Love some
Frosties.
crunchy nut cornflakes. Frosties are all right.
+1 crunchy nut corn.
Okay, so we've got a decent thing. You know who? I don't think Aldi's do it anymore. They used to do. It was like an oatmeal with chocolate bits in it. I mean, it wasn't healthy at all, but it was like an oatmeal
I know
type
the one
thing.
you're talking about.
Completely, it was like crumbled up oatmeal biscuits, and you pour in the milk, and it was delicious. They stopped doing it, and I've got no idea where it went. Yeah, that used to be brilliant. I haven't seen it in years though. Real shame. Good stuff. Anyway.
I actually remember it too.
There was one thing I really wanted to actually talk about, which is what I wanted to discuss with Wayne. I wanted to talk about some retro stuff. So, first of all, to actually get us on the top of retro stuff, Patreons and me will know, because they will have heard the Patreon ramble video thing I do for Patreons. Not to plug my own Patreon, but if you want to help out the channel, you can donate and help us. Please. I'm begging you. But anyway, Windows 2000 is sort of classed as abandonware because if WinWorld holds it and doesn't take it down, usually it's classed as abandonware, hence Windows 98, Windows ME, the Windows Vista Beta, oddly enough, which is the best operating system, definitely. Funny story about that, I recommend, some guy in the comments section, he kept on, every time, atting me, just being like, what's the best operating system I can get for free? What's the best operating system I can get for free? So I just ended up replying with a link to the Windows Vista Beta. He was just like, this is brilliant, thank you. I'm just like, did he actually install it? He installed the Windows Vista Beta. As if Windows Vista could get any worse. He installed an unfinished version.
Do you know the worst version Windows I've ever used?
What is it?
React OS. It's a Russian clone of Windows.
I've heard of React OS, but
it is absolutely terrible.
What's awful about it?
It locks up in the presence of a USB device.
Really?
It blue screens all the time for no apparent reason.
Windows in general? Hey.
Have any of you heard of Star OS or something? Red Star OS or something like that?
Yeah, it's a Linux-based thing that North Korea made.
Yeah, it's lovely Korean spyware.
Yeah, but that sounds pretty reliable. Like, at least it's got a purpose.
So basically Ubuntu.
Hey!
No, sorry, that's South African spyware.
Hey, I'm not a fan of Ubuntu. I prefer to use Elementary OS, which is based on it but more open. Yay! But essentially, yeah, Windows 2000, I'm going to be incorporating it into the next video because, you know, it makes sense because as a free operating system, Windows 2000 is just XP. So, like, I grew up with 2000 and Wayne actually built a PC with Windows 2000 on it. So, Wayne, please tell us about this computer.
2000 and 2000 server on.
And what was your opinions of Windows 2000 at the time?
It was as stable as anything, solid as a rock.
Everyone says that about 2000. Apparently,
I used to run it too, and I can't recall it ever crashing. Whereas when I had it on my machine, it screened at least once.
Yeah, I will say Windows 2000 was like a more bare bones XP. Like XP was a bloody cushion compared to 2000, but 2000 was a very good OS. I remember it a little bit. I can't remember what went wrong with our computer in the end. It was a software issue that I could have fixed now, but, you know, I was like 4 at the time, so I was just like, oh, well, it's broken. So you get the idea. That sort of happened.
2000 will install and run in 32 megabytes of RAM.
So would XP, though. But then
No,
XP
XP needs at least 64, and that is not a pleasant experience.
I would like to put that to a challenge to you. I bet you I can install Windows XP on 32 megabytes of RAM. Go on, accept it. Do it.
The only
I
problem
accept
the only problem I ever used to have with Windows 2000 was with the piece of software that connected to me the internet, which was AOL.
Oh, how
Oh
did that
yes,
end?
boys.
And
well.
you used to phone them up and say, "I've got a problem. What operating system are you on? Oh, Windows 2000 server. Oh, we don't do that. It's
Oh.
not supported. Oh, never mind. I'll uninstall it and reinstall it, and it worked every time."
Yeah, what's it called? I remember this is the weirdest issue I ever had on a computer growing up. Red Alert 2. We're talking like years and years ago. So like I was a kid, I had no idea about like most things, but I figured out Red Alert 2 would crash instantly on my awful PC. But if I got it to sort of start and then quickly end the process and then start it again before it started up, like before like the computer realized what was happening, the game would get past all the errors and I could play Red Alert 2 in 640 by 480 at 10 FPS. So I did that, and most of my childhood consists of playing Command and Conquer games in the lowest quality imaginable, which is
I
sort
have
of what I grew up doing.
I have nostalgic memories of playing the Minecraft beta on Windows 2000.
Like the 2009 versions and whatever, because that's like...
No, I ran 2K on my machine until 2011 at least.
But then, what year was it you properly switched to Linux? Because you're like a full-time
Well,
Linux user. You're like, you sit in your room with a robe and stuff.
I've dual booted for literally as long as I can remember. My first PC was given to me with Linux dual boot on it.
Yeah, which makes sense, you know.
It was 126.04.
I've actually picked up
12 years.
I've picked up a PC from the boot fair before with Linux on it. It was Ubuntu, which wasn't great, but the guy, he was just like, it was years ago, it was like 2008. I was just like, so it does work, doesn't it? He was just like, yep, and I'll be here next week if it doesn't. He wasn't there next week. And he was just like, this bad boy here could run Windows 7. All I'm saying is, I didn't have time to install it, but it's got some Linux on it, and I know my way around Linux. And I was like, all right, mate. Thing is, I'm not too sure he called it Linux. I'm pretty sure he called it like, I don't know what he called it, probably like Linux or something like that. But essentially, he was talking
Like
in
how
that
Wayne
voice.
says it.
Yeah, he essentially, I'm not too sure what happened to him. Good guy. Really, really, really miss him. Anyway,
He got arrested for selling dodgy PCs.
probably, but it's the boot fair, you know? Like, data protection doesn't begin to come into whatever case it is at the boot fair. So, yeah, you get the idea. You can't complain at the boot fair because you take a risk on everything you buy, which is what I always tell people down at the boot fair. It's clearance sellers. They don't know what they're selling. So that was my first real experience with Linux, was like when 7-year-old me bought a Ubuntu type thing. And I wanted to do a video on it. I have a book somewhere which has a Linux install disc, and I wanted to do installing an operating system from a book.
Do you know what year that's from? Because there was a time when Linux had basically no drive.
I think it's from 1998.
You're fucked.
Yeah, I probably would be fucked, but the thing is, I'd be fucked in a way that means I could probably try and experiment with installing Linux, which is every time.
I'm desperate for you to stream installing Gen 2.
I will stream installing Gen 2 at some point. just you know what? I'm still working on the next building a PC for free, because it has begun production. It's a big video, and I'm really tempted to install Gen 2 on the PC purely just because I can. It would just be funny, you know, because someone has to install it, and if that someone's going to be someone, it's going to be someone that's me. If that makes any sense. I mean, it made sense in my head when I said it, but the more I listen to it, the less I make sense. But anyway, you get the idea. Essentially, Windows 2000 is now Abandonware, so if you want a free operating system, head over to WinWorld, because it comes with a serial key and everything, and you'll be seeing it in my next review.
Abandonware doesn't actually mean anything. It's still under copyright. It just means they aren't actively pursuing it.
Oh, yeah. But, you know, Microsoft technically owns all their Windows things, but even bloody technicians and stuff just go and download WinWorld versions of the operating system. I remember that time I installed, what was it, Windows 95 and a VM on a school PC, and then put Bonsai Buddy, and then Malwarebytes went mental at me. Luckily, it was the last day of school, and I then left the school, so, you know, they never found out. But anyway, Bonsai Buddy existed on a school computer along with Windows 95. So, it also had Call of Duty 4, Software Inc., RimWorld. Yeah, I got pretty...
At my school, we have a computer club, which is basically just an excuse to LAN Open Arena every Monday on the school.
we actually found the computers with 75Hz monitors and GT210s and used it for Halo CE LAN in the DT department.
Oh yes.
That was
Oh
fucking
no,
good.
they all got stolen by a certain YouTuber I've linked you.
Oh, is that me?
Never mind.
What's it called? I think the thing is, as a clearly famous YouTuber as I am, it's always being brought up when I walk down the street. Are you the guy that steals computers? And I'm just like, what's a computer? Because, you know, I'm paid off so much by Apple, I have to quote the commercial at all given times. Are they still running that advert? Did you guys see it when it came out?
I don't really watch TV because I'm a hipster.
I don't watch
Yeah,
TV
same.
either. No one watches TV.
Nobody watches
Coronation
TV.
Street for the win.
Okay, so what's it
Yeah.
called? Apple had that advert where they pretended computers didn't exist, despite the fact they sell computers. You know.
Apple
Oh,
have
they
you
don't
paid
sell.
off to never feature any of their machines again in your video.
Apple
don't
love
sell
me
computers,
because
they
I
sell
recommend the eMac. What's it called though? Like, moving on. Like, I was thinking about this, and it hit me. At what age do games become, without nostalgia, they aren't playable? Because this is one thing I wanted to talk about Wayne about. So, like, take a game from the 90s. I don't know, say, what's a game from the 90s that you played in the 90s but you haven't played since?
Oh, God. Let's have a look down this list.
Here we go. Here we got a list.
It was 150 long out of 300 odd. Yeah. I'm not sure whether they'd still play again. There's a game called Nox, which is very similar to Diablo.
Yeah.
Arcanum of Steamworks to Magica Obscura. That's a role-playing game. Not played
Yeah.
that in a long while. Elder Scrolls 2, Daggerfall.
Okay, so let's say Daggerfall. Now, Daggerfall's quite a popular game, but would you say that it's unplayable now, given the clunkiness of a game? Because if someone say, I haven't played much Daggerfall, I have played it, but in my time it comes off extremely clunky. And would you say that without having played that game in the time period, that people wouldn't be interested in playing it, if that makes sense?
I think you'd have to be a fairly die-hard fan of the Elder Scrolls to actually play it today, because I think the control system just isn't up to it.
Yeah, I mean, it's
When you look at the
procedurally
more
generated and stuff, isn't it, as well? Which,
Very, very badly.
hey,
Like a lot of the dungeons are actually broken.
yeah, but that's from a Linux perspective. That means it's working. Hey, Linux, we love Linux. What's it called though? But yeah, I completely agree. And that's one of the things, because I was considering. So I'm doing a little bit of a playthrough because I'm really hyped for Red Dead Redemption 2. So I'm playing through the original Red Dead Redemption, which is going on 7 years now, and it plays like a modern game. And this is the thing: it feels like games from 2008 onwards have just become not bad, but generic in terms of replayability. They all play very similarly, whereas in the 90s you can find a golden gem that plays completely beautifully and different, and you can go back to time after time after time because it is replayable for being unique. I mean, I'm not saying all games have aged well. I mean, take bloody, I don't know, I could say a game from my childhood that I probably really enjoyed. I'm thinking now, Lego Island exists. It's a cult classic. Is it playable? No. And it's frankly not fun. Because it's so clunky. And I'm probably going to get hate for saying that, but
Yeah, I hate you.
Do you know a game that I think's aged very well? The original Half-Life.
The original Half-Life is a masterpiece. I played that on a Toshiba Tecra A1 with Mobility Radeon 9000 graphics when I was like 8. And I was so I picked it up from the boot fair, brand new in package, activated it on Steam and got the gold edition. So if you've got the original copy of the game and you activate it on Steam, you get like a shitload of gold source games. So just a little life pro tip for people that actually made it.
You even get Valve's most unpopular game.
If you insult Ricochet, I will have you killed.
I have it installed on this PC.
Ricochet is a beautiful game. What is wrong with Space Frisbee, huh? Huh, punk? This comes perfectly into the point I'm talking about. Games age well. I'm saying it's a 90s
Oh
classic.
god. Oh,
It
no,
was
you
built
set
as
him
a
off. You set him off.
mode for Half-Life SDK.
No, it wasn't.
To
The
sell
game
it
is a
to other-
masterpiece. You jump from pillar to pillar, throwing frisbees. If you say that is not a masterpiece, I will come to Ireland and I will make you play Ricochet in real life, except you're tied to a post and the ricochets are actually knives. Do I make myself very clear?
Yes, misters. Yes,
Yes,
Mr.
Mr. Budget.
The thing is, though, we're
No.
going on about retro games. We're currently playing one now from the 1990s.
Oh, I mean, yeah, we're playing Open TTD, but that's like the thing. Tycoon games always age well. Unless it was that Dan bought one for 50p. It was German Tycoon Shop Simulator, and within 5 minutes of playing it, he sent me a video of him burning the disc. So, you know. We both, it was an idea we had for the channel called like, Super Shitty Game Sundays or something, where we would live stream 50p games from CEX. I actually even bought... It's not Tiger Woods. It's like Steve Jobs' Ultimate Golf Simulator or some shit like that. And I picked it up for 20p, and I was just like, this is going to be a beautiful live stream because they're advertising ultra-realistic graphics, and it's like... You know that sketch from The Simpsons, or whatever it is, where they pull out where like it's the game, it's like, you have selected putter.
I was just thinking about that as soon as you mentioned.
Yeah, it was like that. And you know, like, well, that's like the thing. Like, old games, in some of them have aged so badly they're funny. And then some games, like, you know, they're just so poor nowadays that you can't play them. I mean, my favourite games, like, we actually went through a phase of playing tons of it. Command and Conquer has aged beautifully. But, like, Wayne, what was your favourite... If you had to choose one game from the late 90s, so say 96 onwards, that was your favourite, what would you say?
One that I played more than anything back then.
It's going to be Diablo.
It probably would be Diablo, to be perfectly honest.
I know it.
We used to play LAN.
Ooh.
4-player.
I would say I haven't played much Diablo, because, you know, it seems like a game I'd love to play, but it seems that one that's so time-consuming that I just haven't, you know, been able to get round to playing it yet.
It is. It can be a big time sink.
But Diablo's aged really well for a game, though, hasn't it?
Diablo 2 has. Diablo 1, maybe not so much.
And why would you say it hasn't aged well? Like, I want to hear the thinking behind it for someone that was actually there and played it.
It's the graphics behind Diablo.
It's
Whereas
not
in
accessible.
Diablo 2, it's much better.
Yeah. So it's just not accessible from that perspective at all.
Well, I think the maximum screen resolution is 640 by 480, so...
Yeah. I don't think there's many ways of getting around that, though, because is it a DOS-based game? It's not Windows, so it runs...
I think it was Windows 95, so...
It might
was
be
still Windows.
It might be configurable, but, like, I feel like... My golden era of games is... I'm going to be that really cliche guy and say, yeah, my cliche era of games is my childhood. But, like, you know... It's purely because I feel that the early 2000s was a golden age where games weren't too difficult, but they also had a lot of challenge if you wanted it. I don't know how, like, if you get me, like, it took that late 90s game style and polished it. So games were still challenging, they were still fun, but, and then things just went downhill, personally. Like, I'm not a big fan of too many modern games, but I am hyped for Red Dead Redemption. You know, if anyone wants to get hold of an early copy for me, please just, you know, hit me up on, I don't know, Bebo, because Rockstar's not tracking Bebo.
You're going to raid the local Asda, aren't you, the night before?
Hamish gets SWAT and
What's it
scream.
called? Well, no, Techo here had a brilliant idea. See, not many places are open 24 hours for game releases, but where's always open 24 hours? Asda! So not only can I go in and pick up myself some broccoli, I can pick up Red Dead Redemption 2 on release. What's not to love about that? So essentially, yeah, Red Dead Redemption is something I'm looking forward to as a new game, but I just feel like so many games like cash grabs. I mean, let's go through. Charles, what's the latest game that's actually excited you because it's been released?
Has to be Fist of the North Star. It's quite a niche game.
Okay, and what did you like about it?
The fact that it just lets you have the pure freedom of exploring a massive wasteland whilst punching guys and screaming Japanese and making their heads explode.
See, that's not something you see in your everyday Assassin's Creed game. That's not something you see in Call of Duty. That's unique. Eightmegs, who doesn't play modern games because he lives on Linux, what was the first thing you enjoyed about Tux Racer?
I haven't played Tux Race. I'm a very, very young child. And they've apparently changed the game engine since.
Oh, well, that's something. Tux Race is exciting because they've changed the game engine. Techo, what's the latest game you've honestly enjoyed and actually been really excited to get up there and play?
To be honest, probably. Oh god, Rimworld, probably.
Now, in all honesty, I'd have to agree with you because the game's just finished beta, but it has a beautiful dev team. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, what's his face? Tynan listens to the community, he gives back, and it feels like the game is trying to be different, and it's using that being different to push its way forward. It's listening to the community, and it's taking that late 90s anything can happen possibilities. I mean, the late 90s, early 2000s were filled with games that advertise themselves with, you can do this, anything can happen, the world be your oyster, and all that kind of jazz, you know, Fable, all those kind of games. And then this sort of takes that idea, mixes it with an RTS, well, it's not RTS, is it an RTS? It's sort of real-time strategy-esque. It's fun.
I'd call it an RTS.
Sort of RTS-esque, Dwarf Fortressy type game, and I really enjoyed it. And, you know, it's a game that does deserve its release price purely because of how fun it is as a game to play, you know? So...
Yeah.
I've never actually been able to get into Dwarf Fortress. It's just
It's a
impenetrable
very
to me.
difficult game to get into.
I know
I've tried
someone
it
that's got
multiple
really
times.
into it, and they gave up their entire summer. So, you know, that is a game.
To be fair, I gave up my entire summer to open TTD once.
Well, we're playing it right now, and I can see how. But yeah, so... Oh, continue, sorry.
I was just going to say, it's not hard once you start getting into, like, the serious shit.
Oh, yeah, this game is brilliant. But then again, I love Tycoon games. I play the shit out of Tycoon games. And that's just sort of what I do. So Owen, well, what is it that you like about... You know, what's the latest game that you've honestly enjoyed?
Forza Horizon 4.
I've heard it's brilliant,
yes.
but then again, if you like Forza, you always love Forza games.
Yes.
So, you know, I see where you're coming from. Playground games, isn't it? They always pull out all the stops. The game's beautifully optimized. The game, it doesn't have Toyota, though, does it?
It doesn't have Mitsubishi
sure.
or Toyota, I'm sure.
That's a bit strange.
sure.
But the thing is, they've also got...
That's
Continue.
because they're signed on with Sony for the Gran Turismo.
No, I heard that it's because Toyota think that signing up to video games will damage their brand.
Oh, yes,
Or-
I've also heard
yes.
that.
But they're in
that
the
is
Gran
it, yeah.
Turismo.
But the thing
I've
is,
heard that.
one thing that what was it? I had a point. It's gone from my head. I had a really good point about those games, but now it's vanished. Oh, here it is. The thing about those games is, it's set in the UK. Now, some issues with that. One, no little village in Scotland or anywhere in the UK would be content with a street race going through it. You'd always get an elderly old man going through those.
I've got that. The town name is
Scotland,
included in that game were Morecambe or Windermere, whichever. And
Yeah.
they love street races, so
Really?
your point is invalid.
Oh,
Yeah, you always got the boy racers going down there.
yeah, but that's the thing. It's a boy racers town, and I've actually got an Astra Mark IV, which is one of the quickest cars you can actually get with decent insurance. And the Astra Mark IV Sports is not in Forza Horizon 4. So, you know, playground games, be the first ones to actually get my real car in your fucking game. Because I love
Well-
driving my car, and you just don't have it. You got everything else, apart from Toyota and Mitsubishi, but you don't have my car. You've even got... In fact, I was going to say that most Forza games do have your Toyota Starlet, because they do. But, you know...
Mhm.
This game doesn't even have 8Megs Toyota Starlet, and he wishes he
You
was
know,
part
I
of
have
the United
you
Kingdom.
know I have a really tricked out Toyota Starlet on Gran Turismo 4.
That's the thing about like bloody racing games. You can pimp out your own car that you have IRL, which is what I like about them. You know, it gives you some creative freedom to just mess around a bit. You get me?
Absolutely, yes.
But yeah, so like that's a good example of a good new game, personally, like by a AAA developer. But they're continuing on a formula that they know works well while mixing it up, which is what Playground Games have actually proven to do. They were given the task of making the series in the first place. They took an already good idea, built upon it, and improved upon it year after year after year after year, which was worked really, really well. See, that's something that I can respect from a AAA developer. Now, Wayne, what's been the latest game that you've honestly enjoyed?
To be perfectly honest, I've tried quite a few, but not really got into anything. I
See,
still go back to old titles.
I'm sort of with you on that. You know, as much as I've been loving new games, I can't help but go back. I mean, I know Red Dead Redemption's not old, but even that as an example, if you get me, it's the fact is, I'd much rather play that than play any game that's come out in the last, I don't know, aside from maybe GTA 5 and RimWorld and a few other games. There's not much else that's come out in those last few years that I've actually. Oh no, there's going to be a crash in my game. Ignore what I'm on about. Oh no, that didn't crash. Ignore me. For people that are listening to the audio version, we were discussing a crash of the computer, definitely not a crash of a train in game. Anyway, but yeah, the gaming industry, because I feel. What would you say is the golden era of gaming, Wayne? Because we'll get your opinion first and discuss it from there.
Given the titles that have come out, I'd probably say the late 90s.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of good franchises
2000.
and developers came out there. Because you had the Oddworld games, you had Diablo, you had the Elder Scrolls, you had so much choice. Yeah, Fallout. It's a bloody good era for games. It's just a shame that, it's just a shame. Yeah, even Counter-Strike. Let's see. But, it's just... I feel that the gaming industry as a whole needs to take a long step back and think, where did we go wrong?
I mean, there's not been a huge amount of new genres coming out of anything, really.
Oh, yeah, there's been nothing new recently in terms of actual...
The places like 10 out of 10 games like God of War, Spider-Man, I've played them all, and they're all, they're amazing, but they have literally no replay value.
They don't strike me as... I hear about these all the time. Spider-Man is the one that I heard about most. God of War, I had no idea what it was about. I just heard the graphics look pretty, and I was just like, pretty graphics, I mostly play games that run on potatoes, so, pretty graphics doesn't really mean that much to me. But, yeah, I just don't get... I want a game that comes out of nowhere and wows me, like Fable the Lost Chapters. I put that in for the first time as a kid, and I was like, whoa, you're telling me...
Fable is a good game.
You're telling me I can leave the guild, I can go anywhere. And it's just yep.
Yeah, a lot of people bitched about it, particularly Zero Punctuation, though he bitches about everything, because it didn't live up to Peter Molyneux's claims of what it would be.
Peter Molyneux is a god at hyping. He's a brilliant game designer who gets carried away with his words, which is where the problem resides. Because the dude should just... he shouldn't be allowed to talk. Oh.
Yeah.
But
it's kind
he
of
does.
like Sean Murray.
He means well. But at the end of the day...
Sean Murray, he actually delivers on his promises in the end. Peter Molyneux still hasn't.
Yeah, I think the thing is, Fable 1 and Fable 2 are both brilliant and beautiful games. Fable 3 is a rushed pile of shit. I couldn't get into it for the life of me. I bought Game of the Year. It's sitting over there in a pile. And you know what? Me and the person playing it, because we play through co-op games and all that jazz, we end up playing Viva Pinata. You know your game's fucking bad when I play Viva Pinata instead of your RPG from my childhood. How'd you cock up a franchise so fucking badly that I choose to play a game where I breed little pinatas with one another and sell them off to a dude who looks like he probably can't go there on a podcast, but you get the idea.
Pinata, mate.
Viva Pinata is actually pretty fun. It's actually sort of tycoon-based, garden growing simulator. You can't hate on it. It's got good music too. Can we appreciate Viva Pinata for a minute? The game, I've got it 4K Xbox One X. Looks beautiful. The game's from like 2006.
I remember seeing it in the Argos catalogue, but I can't remember anything else.
I will now use my time to explain the premise of Viva Pinata. But the thing is, I'll use like a cinema voice because, I've got the cold, so I can go really deep. Alone in a garden, you can look after Viva Pinatas. You can use them to grow other things, grow food, vegetables, other things to actually ensure your garden is the healthiest it can be. Ensuring that you can trade things for profit, breeding, manuring, all the other types of things associated with the pinata industry. through the depths of hell and further onwards you can investigate the dark mysteries of building houses for small worm-like creatures and things that look like horses, which you can then smash open for candy and feed for happiness points and all that kind of jazz. That's the general idea behind it. It's
That
like a
was
tycoon game.
absolutely incredible.
I feel like bits of me have died
doesn't
inside.
tell you about the part where you can lure in worms and beat them to death and make them explode candy to make other animals happy.
Oi, wormhole farming is illegal. You can't do that. Mate, I've played this game. I'll fire it up now. Viva Pinata playthrough.
The PC version is unplayable anymore.
We have to set up a worm protection program.
I'm also, like, I feel that, you know, as much as it like, there's no good exclusives. If you get me, like, no console or even PC for that matter has a franchise that would tie me down to it, you know? Everything is a rehash. No one's coming out with anything new. It's just a shame.
There's one franchise called Persona.
You've told me about Persona. I've actually heard about this. But
every living breath I give, I tell you about Persona.
I've heard it's brilliant, but I haven't actually looked into it or played it yet. So go on, tell me about it. Please tell me more.
Basically, Persona 5, all you have to do is just look up screenshots to tell you that you're in for one heck of a ride. It's the most beautifully stunning, stylish game I've ever played, ever.
Yeah.
Amazing. Even though it was made for PlayStation 3 originally.
The PlayStation 3, towards its end of its life, had some beautiful-looking games, and you can't deny that it didn't, because this always comes up every podcast. I mean, you look, the best example I can give is every cross-platform game looks better and plays better on the Xbox 360, but by the time people had mastered the PS3, we got games like The Last of Us, which looks beautiful. I mean,
it ran terribly, though.
Yeah, it ran pretty awfully. I've heard that it really depends on what PlayStation model you had, though, because I tried it on a Slim, and it ran quite nice on the Slim, and it's due to saying it's really temperamental. It varies per firmware because of how the firmware handles the SPUs. I could go all day in depth. I read so many shitty articles. I can tell you about how the Dreamcast was more powerful than the PlayStation 2 in some aspects, but I won't, because that's boring. So tell me more about Persona.
Well then, there's one thing that I have to rag on about the game is the story is way too long for its own good.
Really?
And, well, it's really not that unique. The game, in total, I played it without doing a single side quest, and it lasted me 120 hours.
Yeah. 120 hours.
That's how long it takes to complete Pokemon Heart Gold or Soul Silver.
Okay, so, you know, Persona 5 or Pokemon Heart Gold / Soul Silver, I personally had Soul Silver because, you know, I'm a real man.
Had Soul Silver.
Yeah, fucking good game. Fucking, did you guys have the Pokewalker thing, the little pedometer thing?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I think mine's still up in my little box thing. That deserves a review in itself. But yeah, like, I feel like game stories is a good conversation. I feel like that's something we should talk about because, you know, as for in-game stories that have actually captivated and actually kept me going, every Rockstar game, within reason, has had a beautiful storyline. Fable had a good storyline. Fable 2's storyline, bit meh in some places, but the actual atmosphere and lore was so good it kept you enticed. And my personal favourite storyline of any game I've ever played, Metal Gear Solid 2. It's just hands down beautiful. I loved it. But, like, I feel like game storylines are even an afterthought because, you know, you get the usual one, which is enough to keep you interested, but, like, you compare Far Cry 3, it kept me interested, it was alright, but it had its flaws. And then you compare that to what Rockstar did, the exact same sort of era, with Max Payne 3, which was, like, AAA movie style. We're talking Brazilian gangsters are burning people in tires while some guy's getting his lungs sold on the black market, which is probably a horribly inaccurate, like, you know, retelling of the story, so there's no spoilers involved. But, you know, like, do you guys play games for their story at all, or no, or yes?
No.
Really?
If I
I play
bought
it
a game for
sometimes.
story, I would not own Monster Hunter World.
Yeah, I suppose. Like, you know, it's like storyline in games is a difficult thing to master. I feel that it's unless if you overlook it, it's so easy to cock up the like. You can't leave stories an afterthought. It has to be a basis from the beginning. You know, like.
You know, I'm probably gonna get hate for this, but I really don't like the storytelling in Half-Life 2.
I haven't finished Half-Life 2 yet, so can't comment.
Are
I
you-
know I'm
are
awful.
you- Oh my god.
I got halfway through finishing on the original Xbox, and then my disc died. And yes,
Basically,
I played the original Xbox version because it's surprisingly decent. So you know.
they actually had to like carve up the maps into more maps to fit it into the 64 megs of RAM.
They also had the fact that the game will actually offload data via the RAM because it's DDR speed to either CPU or GPU to enable encoding on whatever bit has free space to ensure that dips in frame rate were balanced. Hence why the game's actually surprisingly smooth. The game is also permanently stuck on the hardest difficulty.
Seriously?
Yeah, it's fucking great. I mean, if you want a challenge, it's like... I played it on PC and I was just like, why is this game so easy? There's ammo everywhere. It's so easy. And then I went back to playing the original Xbox version. I was just like, there's no ammo, enemies hit hard, what's going on? And it's just sort of a case of, holy shit, the game is good.
You know the ammo crates in Half-Life 2 are actually, the drops are based on what you actually needed.
Really?
Yeah.
So it's randomized to a degree.
Yep.
That's quite interesting, actually. I didn't think they would
The
have done
yellow
something.
ones.
I didn't think they would have done something like that, but you know, that's cool. That's sort of an interesting little bit of info.
There's a 20-minute, there's like a very long video somewhere detailing the AI in the for the cockroach one. So
I mean,
anything's really
everyone knows Half-Life 2 is a masterpiece, and that's the reason we'll never get a sequel, because how do you top a game that everybody loves? You just don't.
What crushes me is that the story was finished.
I will, what I'll do is eventually I will get round to finishing Half-Life 2. I will probably do it in a stream. You know, that'd keep people interested, wouldn't it? It's like, oh my god, Budget Builds is going to finish Half-Life 2 for the first time. We love this guy. Why don't we...
What? Where did you stop playing it, out of curiosity?
I have just got past the bit with the car in the valley that I always use as a benchmark. You know my bit I use as a benchmark? That is exactly where I finish the game, and I play it over and over and over again whenever I benchmark, just as a cruel reminder.
The game, right, gets really good once you get past the coast into Nova Prospect.
I will definitely get back to it. Next time I'm in Scotland around Christmas time, I'm going to play through on the original Xbox still, because that's where I'm my furthest.
Here's a spoiler. You get to command an army of antlions.
I think I've actually got to that bit. I think I actually have. I've got to that bit on the original Xbox. Because remember, you have the little ball things, don't you, that you can throw?
Yeah, the theropods.
Yeah. I've got that far.
Okay, I was starting to get worried.
Yeah, don't worry. I know where I got up to. So we're all good.
What about modern-day games that surprised everyone? What about them games that you thought would be terrible, then you play them, then they like pleasantly surprised you?
Games that have pleasantly surprised me recently. I've bloody loved the Master Chief Collection, and I've bloody loved virtually everything I've played on the Wii U. I think the Wii U is so good. I love it. It's honestly, the Wii U is the console that shouldn't have failed, but it did because it had an awful name. The reason I didn't get it is because it had an awful name and I heard nothing about it. And I've been playing it. Virtually all the first-party releases are a solid 60 FPS. All the games look fucking gorgeous. It's got a beautiful scaling unit equivalent to the Xbox 360 that I think applies some sort of post-processing and upscaling, so all the games look beautiful on my Sony television. You know, it's a great console, and I've enjoyed all my games. Admittedly, I don't have that many games for it, but I've enjoyed those. And I've also been really enjoying Viva Pinata Trouble in Paradise. And that's my life. So, continue it.
What an interesting life.
What's it called? You guys can go on about whatever games you enjoy now, because I've had my little piece about how much I love the Wii U.
You know what surprised me? Undertale.
I haven't played it.
I picked up Undertale, right, because on the insistence of my cousin, and I played about 20 minutes of it and decided it wasn't for me. Then he just started harassing me over it, and so I decided to play it a bit more, and then all of a sudden it got great.
I've been told it's a game that is just, it's a masterpiece that will only happen once in a lifetime because no one had the idea beforehand and everything after it seems like a cheap knockoff.
Yep.
Is that the 2D one where you go backwards and forwards to create defences and try and defeat the shadow sort of thing? Obviously, not the one I'm thinking of.
It's sort of a weird game where you can beat it by being a pacifist or something like that, isn't it?
You can, yeah, it's very good, but the fan base has destroyed it.
Oh yeah, apparently it's got like a Rick and Morty-esque fan base where it's just like, hey fellas.
It's actually worse than that.
Really?
Yes,
How?
it
It's
is.
got furries in it.
Really? I mean,
Yes.
I'm not one to insult people's lifestyle
Do
choices.
not
but...
ever go on the subreddit.
Yeah, I'll avoid that. But like, okay, let me just. I'm going to find this really, really interesting. Wayne, what game has pleasantly surprised you? Like you thought it was awful, but then you enjoyed it. Don't say Command and Conquer because then you'll personally insult me.
Oh, come on, I've played Command and Conquer for a lot longer than most of you lot.
He's been playing it since before most of us were alive, so you know. Well, actually, no. I'm the second oldest here. That makes me feel somewhat mature over you guys, which is me and Wayne, us oldies. We just. Do you remember the year 2000, Wayne? Because I do. None of these guys do.
Hamish, you're like
The
3 months
Millennium
old.
Bug.
You're like 3 months
Sad
older than me.
times.
Yeah, but 8Megs. Oh yeah,
Who's older? Who's older, me or Charles?
You guys can have an argument between yourself about that. So I think you're older than Charles.
Yeah.
When you born? I'm 26th September 2002.
March the 2nd, 2001.
Oh,
I'm an undisclosed date in 2000.
I am 2000, so people already know that I'm like 18. I started the channel when I was 16. So
I started mine when I was like 7. So
I
And now he's
started mine when I
70.
was 12.
If anyone asks, you're 70 years old.
yes.
I love my boy Techwen. But anyway, so like Wayne, games that are like you were going into them thinking this is a pile of shit, and then you thought actually, it's all right. It's not too bad.
To be perfectly honest, none really.
Yeah, to a degree, I'm with you. Although I'm gonna get a lot of flack for saying this. Battlefield 5 felt pretty fun. It felt like Battlefield 3, but with a World War II setting.
What? Disgusting.
I mean, if we're going to confess sins, I think Black Ops 4 is actually really good.
I've been told Black Ops 4 is good by a lot of people. Apparently it's just Black Ops 2, but with an open world. I mean, that's essentially what PUBG should have been, and PUBG is a brilliant concept as a game, There's no point admitting shame that Call of Duty's combat with PUBG's premise is a much better idea than an asset flip that ended up selling well.
Yeah, they actually changed something. They changed the pacing of the game and made it feel more tactical, which somehow it managed to pull off quite well.
I mean, that doesn't surprise me, because who actually was it that developed it? It was Treyarch, wasn't it?
Treyarch, they always put most love into Call of Duty. Sledgehammer just like, here's a product.
Usually do. They usually pull it off, so I'll give them that. They do a decent job. And, you can't blame them for doing a decent job like that, so some games you do have to admit are good, but I'm not a big modern gamer. I'd much rather sit here with my open TTD complaining about how the kids of nowadays have got it too easy and that we should bring back the cane. But that's just me. That was actually a brief conversation that came up earlier today, but we won't get on to that. Although personally, I say instead of the cane, we bring back a giant tuba that we make them play for hours upon end.
I say we make them play Kane and Lynch 2 Dog Days.
Isn't that game apparently awful?
Exactly.
Oh, there's a worse game than that to make them play.
Okay, what
The
game's
original
worse?
cartridge version of ET.
Oh, that is...
Oh, and they have to,
And they have to go and dig it up first.
Oh.
They actually did go.
They already did dig that up. Yeah, they did.
You get an F1 test, you get taken to Mexico and dig up a cartridge.
Did you know that when everybody who was there, they digged up it, they gave away free ET cartridges?
I mean, the game is already worthless, so... I remember that time. Superman 64 is an example of a game that is so bad and so awful that it sells for more than it's worth. So...
And to be fair, ET had every right to be shit because it was developed in about 3 months.
It was a tech
by
demo.
one person.
There's an ET on the PlayStation 1.
Who was it? It was
Speaking
It was a one-woman dev who had to port Doom. She ported Doom to the 3DO and said, "This is a premise. If we work on it, we can release it." And in the end, the CEO pretty much just said, "Hang on a tick, I'll get some music," and then they released it. A tech demo made by one woman and some guy's garage. Admittedly, he gave a cassette of the music to a mate, and he came up with the best version of the soundtrack. I think the 3DO version is the full instrumental version, isn't it? and it's really good. Of the Doom soundtrack.
It's played by some incompetent CEO and his mates in a garage.
Yeah, so it's good. I mean, the CEO, you can shit on him as much as you want. He made some jamming tunes. You know.
Speaking of ET from before, have a look on YouTube. See if you can find the episode of a cartoon series called Code Monkeys, where they go on about making it, and it was supposedly them that programmed it. It is quite funny.
That sounds hilarious. You know, there's lots of stories from those eras, though. I mean, I could go on about how my dad, up in my loft, there's a Commodore 64, and my dad's got a load of, you know, like the password codes and a load of blank cassette tapes from W.H. Smith's with them that he'd use for selling off Commodore 64 games. Because, you know, you could just put one in one side of the cassette deck, put one in the other, and then just, you know, record over the entire game.
Oh, I used to have huge amounts of photocopied manuals.
Oh. Yeah, I just feel like things like that from that era. I always love the challenge of ports and, you know, like hearing about how they came across limitations of old computers and stuff like that. I always find stuff like that really interesting because, you know, it is interesting to hear about how developers came up with little tricks. I mean, the GameCube, they had beautiful reflections, but did you know how they actually did it? They copied the surface to a Z buffer underneath, applied 80% transparency, and displayed it as a mirror. And it looks beautiful.
You know, the id Software, right, made to get the reflections to work in Quake 3, did something called a fast inverse square root, and they're not quite sure how they actually designed it.
Yeah, how did that work? Because you're going to have to tell that one to me.
I don't understand it personally, but...
Yeah, it sounds complicated, probably because
another one id Software did was they worked out that if you did a floating point instruction immediately before, a normal instruction, the normal instruction and the floating point instruction would run at the same time on a Pentium, which is why it gets such a high frame rate on it. Why Quake 1 gets such a high frame rate on an original Pentium as compared to a Cyrix or an AM.
Yeah, the Cyrix died a bit of a death from that.
Yeah, there's lots of little development tricks. I mean, and then you've also got the whole idea of tying game speed to the FPS, namely Command & Conquer. Or if you're Bethesda, even Fallout 4. And technically Fallout 76, their latest release, will have the same issues. So, you know, good job Bethesda for doing the same thing developers were doing 20 fucking years ago. Jesus Christ.
People are angry at Fallout 76 because they put in some like little reference to the Brotherhood of Steel, and apparently it's like before the Brotherhood of Steel is supposed to exist.
I just feel the game is a cash grab and a mistake. But then again, that's just me.
You're not the only one, and I'm a big Fallout fan.
I'm a Fallout
fan. As long
fan.
as you can shoot stuff and their heads go kablooey, I'm happy, to be honest.
Yeah.
I was at the show when they were demonstrating Fallout before it came out.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, that's
give you
sort
some
of,
idea how
that
long
does
I've
give you
been
quite a lot of
involved.
say on the matter, actually.
Yeah.
I was trying to get into the original Fallout because I got it free on Steam, but I find it very clunky.
It's a bit of a hard one to explain. Like, games do get clunky over time. I mean, there's some seriously awful offenders when it comes to controls, usually. Because, you know, it wasn't until, like, the early 2000s where I feel that controls really got standardized with what every button was doing. I mean, on the PC side, you always had remapping. So you're sort of covered. But on consoles, I mean, there's some games that are just horrible to go back to. Dreamcast, oddly enough, I think is really pleasant. Dreamcast, PS2, all those kind of games, usually really fine. When you go back to the 90s, I mean, does anyone have any games they find absolutely horrible to control or absolutely nice? I mean...
The first Crackdown on Xbox 360.
Really?
Horrible.
That's quite a recent game as well. What was wrong with it?
Control scheme's completely muddled.
Like, really? Just, like, completely broken?
Yeah, well, to me anyway. You've got the basic moving and looking around right.
Yeah.
But then there's something about moving that's just not right. The cars handle horribly.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it's semi-RPG, so you're supposed to level up your driving skill by killing people.
Yeah.
And I leveled it up to max because that was the first thing I did because I hated how they control. And they still controlled horribly.
I mean, to be fair, game controls-wise, I did shit on it a lot. Mario Kart 8. Now, I've only got one Wii U controller pad, and the game was designed to be played with, you know, a bloody what you would call it, an axis thing, a
Split
joystick. So all I had to play with, because I gave the gamepad to someone else, I had to use the Wii remote, and the motion controls feel really sluggish because, you know, it wasn't as polished as, it wasn't designed like Mario Kart Wii was around the idea of motion controls. So you have to use 2 buttons that are exactly where your thumb is, and a D-pad. And the thing is, I've mastered the art of teaching myself to play Mario Kart 8 on the worst controller in existence by cramping my hand up into a position where it physically hurts me, but I can still get first place against 200cc CPU competitors.
Are you
so I'm just
talking about
saying.
the break? And
No.
for 1 and 2.
Well, let me see. This can easily be answered. I'll record.
Because, like, I can play the Wii remote really easily. I find it one of the most easiest controllers to play. Like, compare it to the Nintendo 64 controller, I find that a lot more easier.
I've picked up a Wii remote. Okay, so let me see. I've got the D-pad on my left. I've got 2 and 1. Oh no! Please don't turn on the Wii. I've got D-pad 2, 1, 2, and B. So what I have to do is I have to put my thumb on 2, which I then have to move across to 1 to do the drifting, use the D-pad to turn, and then push B to use an item, which sounds really good, but I've got my hands, you know, it should work, but it doesn't, and it physically hurts me to do it. And that's just one little issue I was finding. But, you know, the Wiimote is not exactly claimed to be the most beautiful piece of engineering from a...
Have you tried plugging one of them pro controllers? Wii Classic Controller, I think.
I should get...
Oh, Techo's going back.
What's it called?
What? Oh, yeah, I know, I've went bankrupt.
I think it's called the Wii Classic Controller.
Yeah, I should get a Wii Classic Controller, really, but... you know, the cheapest one I found for sale was actually one. Most of them are about 20 quid. I found one for 11. Guess why it was 11 quid?
Why?
It had Luigi's face on it. They genuinely had a lower price if it had Luigi. No one wants to buy the Luigi one.
Can everybody agree with me, though, that the Wii Mini is an absolute disgrace? That's the Wii Small Red one.
Isn't that the one that you can't mod or do anything to?
No, it's like you can't connect to the internet, you can't do anything, you can't play the GameCube games, it's just for the Wii games.
That sounds stupid. Why does it exist?
Yes, it's literally just a marketing tool.
Then why does it exist?
I have no idea. It was like, it would cost about 80 quid for it, I think. Or like 120.
Well, on release, of course, not nowadays.
Yes.
Because I'm going to say, you can pick up a Wii for a £5. Less than that now.
Like, you can pick up for like 25 quid in like CX, I think.
Yeah.
15 quid where I live lets you a full Wii inbox, the GameCube version as well. And
if you can't find the GameCube, the Wii's a great console for GameCube games and Wii.
The GameCube is bloody beautiful as a console,
Yes.
but we'll be touching on that in our upcoming video, won't we, fellas?
I think the Wii U's
yeah.
has good GameCube emulation. I can't remember whether it was the Wii U or something
I'm
else.
going to prove that the GameCube's the best console.
From a hardware
being forced to do
perspective, it's not
Xbox.
even emulation. It literally is just the game running, because the Wii uses the same specs as the GameCube, but with an ARM coprocessor and higher clocks. So it just downclocks itself and keeps the ARM side running for the menu when you play a GameCube game. And the Wii U uses something so similar that it can run natively.
Like when you put a Game Boy game in a Game Boy Color.
Like, let's say though, a Nintendo Wii inside the GameCube. No, a Wii inside the... Yeah, you know what I mean. That's all it does.
Essentially, their backwards compatibility is hardware backwards compatibility. Although I was looking into the specs of the Wii U, and I'm a huge fan of Greenham Gaming, but his video informs people that it is a Terascale 4000 series based GPU. Now, personally, from my research, Terascale at that stage was good, but it was more efficient than Fermi, but it wasn't until the 6000 series we saw major power efficiency improvements, which leads me to believe, given the clocks, the power, the specs, the performance, and even the actual node that the graphics chip in the Wii is designed on, it's actually based on a Terascale Cape Verde, I think the name is, 6770M chip, because that way it fits into the same thermal envelope with similar performance, and it also means that it's not limited. And that's what I think is actually in the Wii U. Admittedly, I'm not the one who's done a video on it, so I've got no say and nor do I want to make a video on it, but you get the idea. I just wanted people to know.
My train ran over someone's car.
That's a shame. But what's it called? Yeah, stuff like that. I always enjoy. I mean, PC games with dodgy controls. Does anyone have any PC games with dodgy controls?
Not really.
Ricochet.
Ricochet is beautiful. I will come to your house, and I will personally have you ricocheted with knives, and then I will get a magnet, pull those knives out, and ricochet them into you backwards like a Tom and Jerry sketch. Do I make myself very fucking clear?
Got on with model controls.
Can everybody agree with me though? Can we go back to the Wii U very quickly? I don't get how people manage to get mucked up with the Wii U being an add-on for the Wii.
Because the marketing was awful. The marketing showed the Wii U controller and the actual console that they did show in adverts looked so bloody similar to the actual Wii. I mean, it's a beautifully designed console. And the name as well.
It's called the Wii. Most people think it's called something like the Wii Ultimate. Like, just think it's like the version of the Wii.
It just sounds like it's just an upgraded Wii.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Nintendo hadn't established themselves as a branded name of console. They weren't like that. It's like me saying, "Hang on, the original Xbox was called the Xbox," but then they decided to call themselves the Ultra Mega Dream Game 8 million Sexbox 550 or something, and then next year you expect the Boomer Beggar Ultra Mega Game Box 6000, and the games they've got no correlation or link between the names. See, that's what Nintendo was like. You went from NES to SNES, then you went to N64, GameCube, Wii. See, there's much of a difference compared to there is between PlayStation 1, 2, 3, 4, Xbox, Xbox 360, Xbox One. See, that's the thing. Nintendo prided themselves on a different console name. The only thing that maintained things similar was the DS. And admittedly, the DS line is so confusing because it goes DS, DS Lite, DSi, DSi XL, DSi 2XL, DSi 2DSL, Titties Max 5000, Mobillion Jigger Thing, Ultra Mega Max Miyamoto and 5 million XL2 2DS. And then you have the next model up from that, which is the Ultra Mega 5000 Miyamoto minus Miyamoto 3D FX 2D, which is, of course, a very good console. And see, that's where things get confusing with Nintendo. And that's where Nintendo should always swap up the names so we know what the fuck they're doing. Now,
Did you accept a drink off Killer before we start?
No, I'm just incredibly ill and sleep deprived. You may be able to guess from the voice.
It's more the hyper behavior right now.
Yeah, we've got to have some comedy on these sketches. I don't see you coming up with any comedy, Owen. Huh, punk? Go on, Owen, tell a joke. Go on, tell one.
Hold on. I need my moment of spotlight.
Okay, go on, Owen. Right. This is Techwen's channel. Go like and subscribe if you find this joke funny. Otherwise, go dislike his latest video on the Sony Ericsson.
Why did the chicken cross the road?
Hang on,
I don't know. Why did the chicken cross the road?
You ready for this?
Huh?
I'm ready.
To get to the other side.
Fuck over wicked cramp.
You've given me a new form of cough.
Even I wouldn't use that joke.
It's bad when you give me whooping cough from a joke. So you've earned a special place in hell for that joke.
Techo's company failed.
I can't wait.
Get the penthouse suite in hell.
Yes, a penthouse suite in hell would end well. But yeah, you get the idea,
The correct answer to that joke is because he was stapled to the rocker.
But yeah, another point we should touch on, because this seems to be the latest thing in tech news. I wouldn't really say we're a reliable source of tech news, considering this is mostly just a few guys hanging out with a cup of tea, discussing the past more than the present. But yes. Intel's prices are going up. There's virtually no reason to touch anything that isn't Ryzen. Does anyone have any disagreements? Unless your argument is, but esports things matter because CSGO is a horribly optimized pile of shit that needs the highest core clocks.
I'll say just get a Call 2 Duo.
What?
Just get a Call 2 Duo. It plays every game.
No, it doesn't.
60 FPS.
I'm playing on a Call 2 Duo.
I'll say that if you're buying new, go for like AMD side, but if you're going used, you can still go for Intel.
Oh yeah, go 1155 if you're buying used. There's no reason to not buy 1155.
Oh, come on, this game will run on a bloody 486.
Oh no, that's a shame. Techo.inc has been closed down.
The open version requires at least Windows 95, which runs best on a Pentium.
Sad times, people. Sad
It
times.
used to run on a 486. Let's put it that way.
Scotland
It
is
will.
always the first to go bust.
You know what's good though. I think it's a good opportunity for AMD really, because we've been seeing so much stagnation in the market, and now things are really entertaining. I mean, every day there's a new development of what's going on with CPUs and all that kind of jazz. It's interesting again, because we've seen year after year of Intel rehashing bloody ring bus based architecture.
Yeah.
Now we're seeing something good. I mean, it's like
I swear to God, they're preparing for NetBurst 2.
NetBurst 2. What's it called? I mean, okay, I actually want Wayne's opinion on this. Wayne, you were here for NetBurst. Do you have any opinion on what Intel was actually doing with that?
To be perfectly honest, I skipped Pentium 4s.
You went straight on AMD, didn't you?
I was on Athlon and then Athlon 64.
Yep, so it was just like at the time, was AMD known for like the better performance? Because from what I read, I have to do a lot of reading around this type of thing, because of course my era is mostly the ATI Radeon X series. We're talking 2006, 7, 8 era is where I began to like be actually, oh, hang on a tick, computer manufacturers exist, and that sort of jazz. But what was like at the time when you like went to build a PC? What kind of things were you looking at?
Generally price and value for money, but I have bought stuff at stupidly high prices. I remember paying 360 quid for a Pentium 133.
Really?
And 220 quid for a motherboard to put it in.
Ooh, why did you end up paying so much?
They were brand new.
I mean, yeah, at
That's
the time.
when they came out.
Yeah,
that
I
was the
suppose
fastest
if you
processor at the time.
if you needed something like that, well then I suppose. I mean, to be fair, I'm waiting for Ryzen 2, and I'm really tempted. It's similar to what you just said, to spend the extra and go for the top end, the high new one, as soon as it comes out.
Like I said, I mean, the last PC I bought was this one I'm using now, for 7 years ago.
Well, the i7-3770 is a beautiful chip still nowadays, You can't argue with the performance it's got on offer, because it just performs so well. It performs within 20% of a not Coffee Lake. I say Coffee Lake, I mean Skylake. It's the same architecture. Yeah, a 6700, 7700, because, Skylake, Coffee Lake, KB Lake, it's all the same architecture, so it's only really, 20% IPC difference, well, really 17% IPC difference from Sandy Bridge, which means it's closer to around, let's say, 8 to 10% slower than Ivy Bridge, because Ivy Bridge is pretty quick still. So you get the idea. Like, if you bought an i7-3770 when Wayne did, you could be looking at using your PC for gaming for, I don't know, the next however many years. I mean, you'll probably keep that for, I don't know, my estimate would be until games start requiring 6 cores, so 5 years. You could definitely squeeze another 5 years life out of your processor. I mean,
how much longer do you think my second gen i3 had?
Your second gen i3. So what we're talking, Sandy Bridge.
Westmere.
Westmere. So we're talking 1156.
Yes.
I'd say, is this desktop?
Yeah, it's an SFF PC that the school gave me. Okay. And by gave me, I mean we're throwing out.
Okay, so essentially a PC you picked up from the bin. I would say, I've done a video on them. Is it an i5 540 or 550 or 530?
I cannot remember.
From my testing, there is a video available on the channel, not to self-plug myself, and there's a video available on Techwen's channel too, in case you want to watch his verdict on them. You can actually get decent performance out of them, and provided you're targeting games that don't need a lot of cores, so let's say PUBG, anything like that, that's not exactly going to be essentially, this sounds ridiculous to me, games that aren't optimized will run nicely because it only has 2 cores, 4 threads. It's like, you'll be fine for the next few years. I'd say I'd be content with using an i3 550 or something like that for like 2 more years, realistically, to run AAA titles. Battlefield 5 is an example. Battlefield 5 and Battlefield 1 are an example where things are different because, you've... they actually need cores. And that was the issue I found with the 200 GE, which is 2 cores, but works beautifully, But that's the thing, Not everything can work that nicely. But yeah, you get the idea. It works. It'll work all right. It'll be quick. But it depends how long you really want to have the limitation of 2 cores. You know, so that's really where things last. I mean, the core races... It's only now that we're actually seeing a core race. I mean, call me insane, but the leap from single core to dual core was always a given. The leap from dual core to quad core was always a given. But past that, you know, there hasn't really been a desire for a core race. And it's now we're seeing the real core race. We're seeing, you know, like how the 90s was about clock speed and IPC. Now it's about cores, because IPC parity, I mean, Ryzen is only 6 to 8% worse than Coffee Lake, which is, you know, KB Lake and Sky Lake, because Intel has kept rehashing the same architecture 3 times and people just calling it something different, despite the fact it's not. So you get the idea.
I mean, the number of cores it depends how people write the software for them.
Yeah.
If you write it crappily, it's not going to make any difference.
Yeah.
Like a Pentium 4 is the fastest processor in the world if you're running programs that fit entirely in its cap.
What's it?
Which is exactly, yeah, you know, that there's a lot you can say about... There's so many good and there's so many bad processors that are being released on either side. I mean, AMD's whole FX series is a bloody disaster. They released with Bulldozer when they should have released with Piledriver. At least if it was Piledriver, you know, there would have been some bloody hope. But in the end, they released something that was worse than their pre-existing CPUs. And then you had Intel, who, personally, Intel's bad period is happening again right now. Admittedly, Skylake was not a bad architecture. But when you use it again, and again, and again this year with the 9000 series, you are just being lazy. And they don't have another choice because, you know, they are the ones playing catch-up right now. Their 10nm series, there's rumours about it failing. And I just think, you know, from a journalist's perspective, I mean, I'm not a journalist, but it's interesting to see where things are going to go. Because it's the first time in a long time we've actually had an interesting CPU market. So I say, Intel, you know, you're really going to have to up the ante when it comes to CPUs. Because I've got no fanboyism or whatever when it comes to any companies. You know, I've had everything AMD, Intel, and I just buy what's best for money. And right now, you know, you come up to me and you try and tell me that your Intel processor was a good buy. Well, maybe, if you only play CSGO, but that's it. See, I don't only play CSGO, so I've got no reason to
I might be
recommend
wrong, but at least until recently, the Source engine was still 32-bit.
I think it was till 2011. I suppose that is quite recently. Then again, I don't really know. We'll have to check on that next time. That's the point. I'm going to be doing a video. I want your guys' verdict on it. Top 5 beautifully optimized games like GTA and stuff. Constant updates, still runs absolutely great. And top 5 games that run like arse. So like CSGO, oddly enough. Because personally, the game doesn't look pretty. The game isn't great. But it has horrible frame rate optimization. The game is too demanding for what it is. And they keep building on a premise that isn't stable. Does anyone else feel that I'm wrong thinking that, or that I'm right, or, you know, anything along those lines? Because I'd love your guys' verdict on it, at all.
I'd like
you know?
to see that.
Yeah, because I think it's quite an interesting. It's an interesting idea. Because
Techo has left the game.
I want an idea. I want to just, you know, not shit on, you know, Valve and CS:GO, but I want to make it clear that I'm not okay. And I don't think it should be okay that you can come in and you can... Yes, it's your game. But why are people so content with the fact that people can't run it like they used to? The game used to run on a Core 2 Duo laptop of mine. You wouldn't see it running on there now, would you? You know?
God, no.
It's just ridiculous. And that's the thing. People are content with that. And I'm personally not content with the idea of games getting worse to run. And GTA 5, for all its flaws, is an example of how you do a game right. Because the game has constant updates. Yes, the file size gets larger, but the system requirements don't change. Thomas on the Discord is still running the game on a 9600 GT in HD resolution. That's good. That is testament to good game development when some guy is running on a budget graphics card from 10 years before. Well, not 10 years before the game got released, but 10 years ago. You know.
Be more specific on which Thomas.
Thomas Kelly.
Oh yeah.
But you get the idea. You know. I'm assuming people know who Thomas Kelly is. If you're on the Discord, you'll know.
Yes.
But
He
you
was
get
on
the idea.
podcast.
He was on the podcast, yeah. So even if they haven't been on the Discord, they'll know who he is. But yeah, you see exactly where I'm coming from with that. I just don't think games should be getting worse to run, and I think that Valve should be the ones to use what their platform offers. See, Valve offer on Steam a version release selection, and for RimWorld it lets you go back via the betas, so you can go back to Alpha 11 or Beta 18 if you want. It doesn't matter, you have the option. I feel like games like Half-Life 2 should allow you to go back to release engines, but they don't. So you have to end up jumping through hoops and technically piracy just to run an older release. I've got the game on a disc of the older engine that I have to use to benchmark older PCs. Admittedly, I haven't used it that much because of how much of a pain in the arse it is to get Steam to verify it. But just, you see, I feel that there should be an option.
I have a sneaking suspicion that the Source Engine's source is probably unworkable at this point because it's had 20 years of bloat attached to it.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, you look at that, and there were some rumors about behind devs. I think it was Titanfall was a Source game, and they did a beautiful work with it, but the developers weren't happy with Source as an engine, you know, because it was a bit of a pain in the arse.
According to John Carmack, they're still paying royalties for Quake 1 code living in Source.
Oof, that's. Let me see.
He said in a tweet at one point that there's still Quake code in Source.
Really?
Yeah.
That's pretty, you know, impressive. But then again, you know, that engine. There's just some engines that are iconic. The Quake engine, the Doom engine, Source as an engine. Because Source as an engine used to be it's always been referred to as a masterpiece of an engine by a lot of people.
Nah.
You can't deny on release it was. On
For
release
release it was, but now it's literally horrible.
Exactly why people are complaining about it, because you know it shouldn't be awful. But it is now awful, and that's where people have got a problem with it, because no game should be running as poor as that when it used to run so well. I mean, Half-Life 2, admittedly, the additions they've made have been good, and they've been optimized. And I do feel that there should be an older version available, but it's done right. CSGO is an example of how it's done wrong, because you just shouldn't be, you know, messing with that type of thing. But, you know, people aren't... Some people just aren't...
had a menu change and it made the frame rate in game better. That's how bad Source is.
Yes, I suppose. But, I'm going to blow my nose. I'm still ill. Oh. We got my nose featured on a podcast. What I've been doing gradually is muting out my mic as I've been sneezing and stuff like that. But, like, is there anything you guys want to, like, talk about other than that? Like, is there any other topics you guys would like to cover?
Apparently Red Dead Redemption 2 is on 2 discs.
I think that's a good thing. I mean, it's going to be 83 gigs or something, so 65...
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
I thought they said it was 105.
Is it? It might be bigger, I don't know. I will definitely let you guys know.
Someone... It took me a week to download TF2. Imagine if I tried to get Red Dead Redemption on Steam.
Well, it's like when I had really bad internet for GTA 5, I just walked off to the local university and called it a night, you know? It made sense to do that. Worked out quicker, too. So in the end, I ended up doing that. But, yeah, you can't...
No, but apparently one disc of Red Dead Redemption 2 is a data disc, like one that's full of just install.
Yeah, because it's the same way they did GTA 5 on the Xbox 360. You install disc 1, and then you play with disc 2. And the best way to actually play GTA 5 on the last gen was to install GTA 5 disc 1 to your hard drive, install GTA 5 disc 2 to a USB stick, and then you had dual data streaming, and the game ran incredibly smoothly, which is what a lot of us GTA 5 fans did, admittedly. I kept around an Xbox 360 on my desk plugged in with VGA just to play GTA Online. I loved early GTA Online, it was so fun. But, you know...
I've heard it's gotten quite toxic with just it being
The issue with it is it's a blatant cash grab. it's not that you can't do things, and it's not like the game's bad. It's just a case of, you know, Rockstar, well, not Rockstar, it's Take-Two that are the publishers that have figured out how to make all this money off of it. And that's where things are happening, because they know they can make cash off it, so they do. And the way they make their cash is microtransactions, so everything's really expensive, and the game has evolved from being the type of game where you go along, you rob a store, you rob 5 stores, you've got enough to buy yourself a little garage, you can get yourself a bike, a couple of cars, all that kind of jazz. You pick up some cars, you go to the pay and spray. And now it's become a type of game where you, how do I word it? You,
Grind.
yeah, there's a grind to it now. And it's also, they've taken it away, like the GTA aspect. It's more of techno-futuristic cars flying, all that kind of jazz. And it's fun, but it's not GTA Online. You know, it's techno-futuristic criminals of the future doing missions and all that kind of jazz. And it doesn't feel right. In fact, I feel like the thing is, Rockstar actually published a release. It had, I think there was something about it that Take-Two weren't quite approving of the DLC. They released a patch a little while ago so that missions and stuff before heists, they pay more depending on the time and how you complete them, and made it quite a viable way to grind through missions. And of course, people weren't happy. Take-Two apparently wasn't happy with that release because it took away from the need of shark cards, which I've never bought, but you get the idea. You know, some people actually, you know, they actually recommend you buy them. I don't get it. You know, I'm not big on the whole shark cards and all that kind of jazz, and you know, it just doesn't strike me as being a particularly good way of doing things. You know, from a business perspective, I mean, no company is free from its issues. You've got CD Projekt Red, who people claim are the godsends, who have been known to overwork their employees and stuff like that, and all that kind of jazz. And you get the idea. No game studio is a friendly environment. It's all a toxic area, if you get me. Game development.
Sorry, go ahead.
The game development as a whole, you hear the stories from it, and the whole world is toxic because that's just the stigma attached to it, that they are people without social lives in that industry, and they will work the hours you want them to, and they are stuck without a way out, if you get me. And
yeah, there's a good extra credits video on the working conditions in the games.
And what type of stuff is covered in that, if you don't mind me asking?
I haven't seen it in a while. It goes into the crushing work hours, how if you leave a job, you're unlikely to get another one, and that kind of thing.
Really?
So it sounds very much like Hollywood and the people complaining.
Apparently, game developers have the studios under crunch time all the time, so people are working 100-hour weeks for not enough pay, and that.
Why doesn't that surprise me? You know, it's a shame, really, with stuff like that. But, you know, there's not much people can. It's another industry that you just get trapped in, and that's one of the things. You know, I feel like that'd be a good topic next time if we actually discussed the industry as a whole and how we feel towards it. But
do you know what I think we should play next time?
What should we? That'd be good. Xonotic. We had a little go with that. That's
thanks to Smash Spike MC and for reminding me of its existence.
Was that the comment?
Yep.
Have you just given him a shout out?
Yep.
You've just given him free publicity. What's it called though? But we've been going for about an hour and a half though. I feel like we should begin to wrap this up. So thank you very much for everyone for joining. We will definitely continue this next time. We've covered a lot of very interesting topics. Thank you very much to Charles.
Welcome.
Thank you very much, Eightmegs.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Callum.
No problem.
Thank you very much, Owen.
Thank you for the invitation.
And cheers, Wayne, for giving us your insights into the actual history of things.
Yep. And I could probably go back a lot further than that.
And we will definitely be doing that in the next one.
And you're pretty much ancient history anyway.
Oh, yes.
Poor guy.
What's it called? But it's been good. I mean, I've also enjoyed playing this open TTD in the background because we've all been having a little game together, haven't we?
I've broken £1 million.
I've got 71,000 in the bank, but you know, Greasy's going places as my company, and Greasy is going places. My guy looks like an 80s porn star, and his name's Greasy Pete, the manager. I'm just going to, before I leave, I'm going to build my HQ next to the Drenville mines, because that's the type of place where he looks like he lives. Yes.
My guy looks stoned.
What's it called? I'm just gonna watch this. I just have to. I feel like this is a good note to round this off. I want to watch my first delivery of iron ore make its way to the most overworked factory in existence. Come on, boys.
Look at the operating profit graph, and it gives you some idea who plays it a lot.
Oh, come on. Requires iron ore. Oh wait, I've just noticed I'm an idiot. I'm sending coal to the iron ore factory. And on that note, good night. Is that good? Good night from all of us.
Yes.
Good night, everyone.
Good night,
Good night.
mate.
Good night. Have a good.
Toodles.